All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the Cal South webinar, birth year versus school year, and the decisions made by US Soccer and USYS. I am the chair of Cal South. My name is Nick Webster, and tonight I'm joined by members of the Cal South board and Cal South staff. First, Jeff Dyrek, our CEO. Unfortunately, Jeff's a little under the weather. He's got the flu, but he'll be gutting it out. We've got Juan Guzman, who is a member of the Cal South board, and the SRA, the State Referee Administrator. We have Michael Chin, who is the Technical Director of Cal South, and you're going to want to be asking him all the questions tonight. And thankfully, Mike knows all the answers. We've got Laura, who is part of the refereeing program, Anthony Morales, who is part of our tournament program, Adrian Marquez, otherwise known as Mr. Cal South, and of course, Christy Paulson, who is probably Mrs. Cal South. So, welcome everybody to this discussion. I'm going to turn it over to Michael Chin. Unfortunately, I have to attend another event tonight, but I'll be with you for the first couple of minutes. And Michael, take it away. And I know Jeff's going to be jumping in. So please feel free to ask any questions. And as always, feel free to reach out to us via email, via phone. Our numbers and email addresses are on the Cal South website. So I hope tonight is going to be super informative. I know it's a big decision that US Soccer has made, but all the other organizations, USYS, AYSO, and US Club, have all bought into this decision that we're going to go with the school year. But Michael, I'm sure you have way more insight than I do. So take it away. And by the way, I love your backdrop. Looks like a fun stadium.
Thank you. All right, and thanks for that intro, Nick. And first, I just want to jump out and welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining. The purpose for this, obviously, is just to get some feedback from you all to make sure that your voices are heard. So right now, the chat function is not like public, but you can send messages to me and the staff that we can address. Later on, towards the end, we'll open up the chat to get a lot more of the ideas flowing so we could have more conversation. And everyone also is muted at the moment, just so we don't have anyone like talking over each other. But if you have a comment, you want to say something, then please use the reactions down below, raise your hand, and then we can go in order and we'll make sure everyone that raises their hand gets a voice and we can hear from all of you as we go through. I may have just taken what Adrian was going to say. Anything you want to add to that, Adrian?
Just very quickly in regards, welcome everyone. Also, first of all, I see quite a few of us here. A lot of names I recognize, so wonderful to be able to interact with everybody. In regards to questions and feedback, and everyone giving feedback, the reaction button is down at the bottom of the Zoom. It has a little heart, says reactions on it. When you click that, you'll see an icon that says raise hand. So when you're wanting to speak, please raise your hand. That way it will alert us to unmute you and you'll be able to speak. When we unmute you, just go ahead. There will be another prompt that says put down hand. If you could do that so we can keep everything organized and move everything along. Thanks, Chinny.
Thank you, Adrian. So just a couple things. I'll share my screen in a second. We'll kind of go through. We have something on the website and I'll actually put the link in the chat for you all if you want to kind of look and peruse through it as we go through it. But I think Laura will talk through it a little bit more, just some of the frequently asked questions and things about this change that we're going through at the moment. I put the link in the chat. I'll share it. And Laura, would you like to cover anything from our FAQ page?
Sure. So, hi everyone, and thank you for joining. We set up an FAQ page just because we had sent out a communication to the membership. We also posted an article online which kind of detailed how everyone was told at the AGM what the decisions were that comes from the top down, right? So now we grouped together and we're trying to do our best recommended practices and frequently asked questions that we we know already, we've already received, or we anticipated receiving from the rest of the membership. So what we know is that we have to, for 26-27 registration period, definitely beyond the school year. So what we decided is that so that we can transition into it and it's not such a huge impact, we would start with next spring 2026, start using that school seasonal year. Everyone in the system that are clubs and registered access currently right now can see both the school year that we've been offering for the past 2 years for those that want to use it and the regular calendar year. But moving for spring 26, we really are asking everyone to utilize that new seasonal school year that mainly District 5 has already been using, so that we all transition, we all start preparing so that it's not such a huge impact come 26-27 fall registration period. So the biggest change is just that, making sure that we are able to adjust our teams, get the word out, get the communication out to parents, and start planning way in advance. I mean, we have a full year to do this. And so again, just to minimize the impact of that change to what we're already been used to since 2017. If you could scroll down a little bit more, we've also created right there, Mike. We've also created a school year matrix. And if you go to our website, we still have our current year because we're still in 24-25, and that's going to end at the end of August. But you'll also see the new school year age matrix. And in that school year age matrix, we went ahead and we added the 26 and 27. So you see them a little bit different than what you're used to seeing, which kind of shows like it's a condensed version so that we can add the 25-26, the current year's school age matrix that is available in the system, like I said, but also the 26-27 that everyone's going to have to use, again, just to kind of plan ahead of time, and know what you can, what parents could see and refer to, and what you can refer your parents to look at as we're preparing for that. And then can you scroll down a little bit, Mike? Okay, so there we go. So basically, one of the questions that we have started seeing is if my child were held back a school year, or if what if my child is in a certain school grade. It has nothing to do with the school, what school grade level the child is in. We want to make sure to emphasize that to parents because the wording is different. So it might confuse them. We just want to make sure that it has nothing to do with that. It just has to do with the start, when they start the school year. It doesn't matter what grade they're in. And if they're held back in school year, or if they're ahead in the school year, again, it makes no difference. Just to follow the actual chart that we have available that affects them based on the year of birth and when they start school. And then as far as the coaches, again, just making sure that we know that there's going to be differences. Obviously, we'll be able to include kids of the same age group so that they'll be with their buddies, emphasizing the benefit of that, obviously, but also knowing that there's those changes of teams and their ages that may occur, trying to bring them into the fold for the rest of the team, to be cognizant of that and include them in those changes. And then as if it's going to affect State Cup and National Cup tournaments, it shouldn't, because we're still working off of the previous spring season. And ODP has always, as Mike will tell you, has always used the calendar school year. So that's not going to be affected in any way as far as when they can conclude their pools. So best practices, again, preparing for that season, please use the spring season. You don't have to, but it's highly recommended. We're really pushing everything, and the seasons that the leagues are going to be configured will be based on the school year season. So we don't want the children to be in a disadvantage, because that's what's going to be the result of 4 months disadvantage. But again, it's highly recommended. Get everyone in there. Can you scroll down a little bit more, Mike? And then, of course, again, communications, getting the clear message to the parents, and the trial adjustments that you'll have to make in advance. We have a full year to practice and to prepare for that, so that we don't have such a huge impact. That's about it.
Thank you, Laura. So with that, again, that document that you saw us going through, you can find it in the link that I posted in the chat. Just to reiterate, why this is coming about with this change from U.S. Soccer. So actually, there was a lot of collaboration between U.S. Youth and U.S. Club, ASO, a lot of the organizations, about how we could best collaborate and manage this together. So really, it comes from the top, this whole change. And so, like Laura said, with all those details, there's a little bit of time that we can adjust to this. So it's really important for clubs and coaches to work together and to try and make this change as fluid as possible, right, for players that may be adjusting teams. And again, just to emphasize that players are allowed to play up as they've always been able to, but you are not allowed to play down. So that's something to take into account if you're going to be, right, kind of reshuffling your teams for the spring 26 season. And then again, the ODP, just because we're in charge of that program, right, that's always been through birth year. So we will continue that as we go through scouting and things like that. Like I say, we're giving you a little bit of information. We want this to be a little bit more interactive and collaborative. So I do want to open up the floor to all of you and get feedback from you, questions, comments, anything like that from the group. So please, if you want to share, go ahead and raise your hand or throw the reaction so we can hear from the group. And maybe throw it out to the other staff members if Juan or Anthony wants to say a few words before we hear from the group.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining. I think Laura and Chin covered it well. And it'd be great to hear some feedback. What you feel, how you feel about it, and how would it affect you and your local community?
Yeah, and then Anthony or Christy or Jeff, anything before we go to Ramon?
I apologize I won't talk too much, but battling the flu, like Nick said. But really the idea, by moving to the school year was also to help grow the game. There are some stats that were presented through the research process that talked about how many kids had left the game because they weren't able to play with their classmates. So that was another big part of the discussion that took place. So this is, again, with the World Cup coming to the U.S., these are opportunities that we want to try to capture to grow the game. And then, again, being aligned with USYS makes a lot of sense for Cal South. So that's the other part of, why we're moving to school year, but really to grow the game, and right to keep things consistent. And as Mike mentioned, AYSO, US Club, USYS have all united. So again, try to keep consistency. Everyone's attendance, and I'm going to jump off here just as a, not to give you my raspy voice any further. So
That's great. Thank you, Jeff, for sharing. So with that, I'll pop things over to Ramon. You should be able to unmute yourself and let us hear.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. I'm Ramon Alleman with LMSA, La Mirada Soccer Association. Just our own association. I'm actually a board. I'm the director of competitive for our program, and my feedback isn't positive. I have a lot of relations in club soccer, but like our association specifically, our competitive teams, which I get it for recreational teams, but for our competitive teams, this is gonna decimate a lot of our teams, split them up. Kids that have been playing together for a year and a half, 2 years aren't going to be able to play together anymore. And for example, just my son is on one of the teams. Currently he's at 2018, plays on the 2016. And does fairly well. Now we're going to be asking him if he stays with the if the team stays together, now he has to play an additional 5 months up, which is a scary thing for a father, and unfortunate. And my take on it is I feel like it's just being done to generate more teams. I know it's going to happen. It is what it is. And we're in a position at our community and our association that we're maxed out on number of competitive teams. So in reality, it's just gonna it's probably gonna take away. We'll probably lose teams and lose kids to bigger clubs who are going to charge them $3,000 to $5,000 more than they have to pay with us, and which is it's unfortunate. There's not a lot of I'm sure there's not a ton of places like us. I know there's some other places like us, but from on our end, that's the feedback from that I know that the people I've spoken with in the community and stuff like that. It's gonna hurt them. And the whole idea of playing with your friends and stuff like that. Well, if you've been with your team for a year or 2 years, those are your friends now. You know what I mean? So it's not just school friends, it's your sport friends, your team friends. And it's kind of tough. I had a late night conversation with another coach of mine, and we're just trying to figure out how we can keep this together. And the only way to do it is play at a lower level if we keep it together, and that's unfortunate for their development. So that's pretty much it for me. I'm just trying to figure out if you guys have anything facing that situation where you're maxed out on 8 teams. What do you do? What do you do in that situation?
Thank you, Ramon, for sharing that. I know there's a couple people who shared your insights and challenges. You could see through the reactions. I'd say for sure there's going to be that, like you say, because again, players can play up, right? So potentially there's certain players that could be able to still play up within the new adjustment to the ages. But if you were already a younger playing up and now it's shifted that 5 to 6 months a little bit more, right? That could be a big jump. And it comes down to the directors and the coaches, knowing the expertise of if those players are able to play in those higher age brackets, or if it's maybe detrimental to them, right, to their long-term player development. So really would be, I guess, testing the coaches to know their players and how well they'll be able to perform at those levels with those teams, the older age groups, or if they should be at something a little bit more age appropriate for them. And then there are some questions coming into the chat, so I'll come back to the questions, but Jessica does have her hand up, so I want to be able to hear from Jessica as well.
Okay. Thank you.
You should be able to come off of unmute now, Jessica. Maybe while you're finding the unmute button, for Dara Ward, the advice for coaches 2 to 3 years with the full team, use your youngers to the age change, right? So kind of similar to what we're talking about now is I feel the same sentiment, right? You've had players for a few years, the team chemistry that you have throughout the groups, right? And being a little bit hesitant about breaking that up. I know from personal experience from coaching teams when this happened the first time we went to the birth year, right? That there were certain teams that, were a little bit more competitive, right, with the ability levels, and through the change, it had just adjusted which team. And actually it was a shocker to me that one of the teams, right, was highly competitive after the age change and wasn't quite expecting that as much. So I think there is going to be a little bit of surprise for some of the coaches within those ages, within those changes, I should say. But again, it comes down to knowing those younger players, right? If they physically, right, are able to compete at the little bit higher ages, technically and tactically. But I would say probably the biggest thing you should all be looking at is like the emotional intelligence of the players, right? Because if a player is 8, 9, 10 playing a year up versus someone who's like 13, 14, 15, right, there's a big gap between the younger ages, because 1 year makes a huge difference at the younger ages. It's not so much at the older ages. So take that into account for all of your teams and players as well, based off of, right, the emotional age of the players.
Michael,
see.
can you help Jessica unmute?
I can only ask her to unmute.
Okay.
She needs to click the button. So right now I'm going to ask Brooke to unmute. So you should be able to click the unmute button.
Got it. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So I am a mom and a team manager for a team in Santa Barbara Soccer Club. My son's birthday is August 31st, 2015. He gets to and we held him to not start kindergarten as a 4-year-old. He was just coming out of COVID with his group. He wasn't socially ready to start kindergarten. My husband and I made the tough decision to hold him. Knowing that in sports he would get to play with some of his classmates and a few the year up, the way the ages are right now. Now he's stuck only playing with the year ahead. I'm wondering if there is any consideration for a grace period of those, even July, August birthdays, of being able to show proof of grade level. I've got a tinier kid who was socially not ready to go ahead. His birthday's on the last day of the month, before the cutoff for school. And I do think school systems are more stringent on even letting you hold back. But given how close he was, we went ahead with it. So I'm wondering if you have any comments on those summer birthday kids and us not knowing the impact when we made that decision for his grade level, and what your thoughts are for that.
So I do have a comment. You're not going to like it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So there is no grace period for those cutoffs, similar to
Okay.
how it was prior to when it was birth
Yeah.
year, and even prior to that. The cutoff really is just to maintain that structure, right? That we have players in specific ages. And again, like playing up is always allowed, but playing down is not allowed, even if you're
Yeah.
at the last day of the year, which is really unfortunate.
Mhm.
I would say, again, with the team and some of the players, he's probably right in that zone that there possibly could be other players, right, like that are playing up within his team, and that might be something to think about. Again, the shuffling of teams is going to be important for coaches, for clubs, for everything going forward, is to make sure, again, players are on the appropriate teams, the appropriate levels. So
Yeah. They
hopefully,
had just talked about 8-1 the whole time.
was that?
And
Oh,
then and then the youth soccer,
yeah.
they had talked about making it 8-1, and then they came out with 9-1.
Yeah.
And the 8-1 gave some of these kids like a chance to have a choice. Like my neighbor down the street has summer birthday kids, and she felt they were ready and they were fine. And, just genetically, they're bigger people. We're not, so you kind of know your kid and make your best decision, and it is what it is. But
I'd
yeah,
say hopefully the best thing is that there could be other potential players from the team that he was with before that
Yeah.
can move up to this new age group, right?
yeah, yeah. I understand he can't change it. He's just going to get stuck in that junior year of high school too, which,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Thank you, Brooke, for sharing.
yeah. Thanks.
Of course. And so, Jessica, again, if you can hit the unmute button, we'll hear from you once you get that done. I'll go through a couple questions, and actually I'll open up the chat in a minute just so we can kind of have a conversation between everyone as soon as I get through a couple of these ones. I did put the link back in the chat. That link is to our webpage that has some of the FAQs. It has the matrix. That's really helpful. For Luke, good question about the MLS Next decision. So MLS Next is going to stick to the birth year for what they're doing. That's a little bit of a different environment that they see within their players, and just like ODP, right, for the kind of professional player pathway, and the national team that will stick to the birth year is what MLS Next and ODP will be sticking to. Oh, Manu, are you still in here? Let's see, because you didn't raise your hand, but you have a question there. So Manu, I asked you to unmute if you have a couple minutes still before you run off to training.
He's still on the call.
Still there, yeah.
There he is.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi. So is it my turn? Sorry, I had to. I'm in the middle of the field. This is Manu Apelius, technical director for Juventus Academy LA. I'm very disappointed with this decision. I have to be honest with you. I was there when we made the change from one system to the other, and it was an incredible period of turmoil. It completely stripped apart thousands and thousands of teams all over the country. A lot of kids quit soccer because all of a sudden they weren't allowed to play with their friends anymore. It took years to get to a normal state. And then, of course, COVID hit. And then after COVID, all this proliferation of different leagues and different levels. And now we're asked to once again strip everything apart and start again. So my question is, why are our leaders, why is our leaders making things complicated for us instead of trying to help us build some continuity, some chemistry, some normalcy? Quite frankly, it seems like our leaders are trying to mess things around for us, for the kids, for the clubs, for everything involved. And by the way, I think this is extremely disrespectful for the kids. Anybody who is in club soccer knows that the majority of the club teams are composed of kids from different schools, different geographical areas, different social extraction. I do not buy into this, we are doing this for the kids so that they can play with their friends. That's ludicrous. And you all know that. Every single one of you who is involved in club soccer knows that that's not it's not a factor. Kids play club soccer because they're good and they want to be challenged, and there are kids coming from a lot of different directions. You're lucky if you have maybe one or two of your schoolmates playing with you, regardless of what age system we use. So why are we doing this? Why are our leaders constantly creating turmoil and making things complicated for us instead of helping us run smooth programs for our kids?
Manu,
And that's all I have to say.
if we had the leaders that were making the decisions in here, that would be a great question. But really can just put it back out, and what we can say is that they do have evidence-based research on, and I would say this is probably a big one. And again, that there might be some people that don't like to hear this, but Southern California is a pretty niche, it's a pretty unique environment. And this was really a national theme that they were looking into, because, and forgive me for not having the exact stat, there might be someone on here that does, but 80% of the country would fall into this category, right? Where it's not the highly competitive. And I know, again, the club environment in Southern California is quite different than the rest of the country, but they had to go and implement something that was going to be something more kind of accommodating to the rest of, the country in that sense, obviously.
But if that is true, then why didn't they make those studies 10 years ago? I find it incredible to believe that in this country, we change our methodology, we change our system every 5 minutes, like it's changing a shirt in the morning when you go to work. It's like, can we have one system that works and stick with it for 50 years and try to create something solid? I mean, if their argument, I know it's not your argument, you're just telling us what comes from above. But if that argument is true, then why did we ever make that change just 10 years ago to begin with? We should have just stayed with that system. We should have never gone to the calendar year. And I remember why everybody was saying, oh, we need to get aligned with the rest of the world. Everybody around the world goes January 1st, December 31st. We have to change. I'm losing faith, and I represent a lot of people. Everybody's losing faith with what we're being fed. You know, if this argument is correct, then we should have never made the switch 10 years ago. We feel like we're getting pulled left and right with no attention whatsoever to the real needs, daily needs of soccer clubs and the kids that play in these clubs. It's really very upsetting. And I understand it's not coming from you, it's coming from above, but you guys are our voice. You should make these messages, you should relay these messages to the people above you.
100%.
And now you just said an MLS Next instead is gonna stay with the same system, so it's gonna stay with the same calendar year. So that's gonna create even more complications. I mean, I speak daily with parents that are asking me questions about leagues, about age groups, about this, about that. Why can't we make things less complicated for our families in this country? Why does everything have to be so convoluted and complicated? It's maddening. Anyway, I want to thank you for your time. I have to start the practice. I have my team waiting for me here, but I will definitely look for the recording of this meeting because I'm interested in hearing more opinions and what everybody else thinks. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you, Monty. Thank you for sharing. And appreciate hearing from the group. There's no more hands up, but again, I opened up the chat just so everyone knows. So I think you've seen it already. So if you want to have some side conversations in chat, but I have Jacob Morrison. I don't want to call you out, Jake, but you put a resource in the chat. If you would feel comfortable coming off of mute and maybe just giving us a little description of what that article,
sure, Mike.
Summary of what it's about.
Sure. It's just an article by Soccer Parenting from Sky Eddie Bruce, just kind of going over an overview of, you know, why it would make sense to go to an August cutoff. And it seems like there's other parts of the country and other associations and other members of these associations who are positioning to make that change from a September cutoff to the August cutoff. So just like the other participant has mentioned, you know, that might be a better shift, right? And I don't know if that actually will happen or not, but I think there are other people across the country who are looking into potentially changing from September to August. So a good resource to read, and then maybe a rallying call for other members of this call to maybe email you guys or email US Youth Soccer and get your voice heard.
Yep. Thank you for sharing that one, Jake. And again, feel free to, if there's anyone that shares that sentiment, put in the chat. Again, this is what we're here for, to hear from you, to voice the opinions. Obviously, we want to pass things forward and let everyone know, let US Youth, US Soccer, right, know about this change, how it's affecting you, right? And kind of like Manu said, is unfortunately we didn't have stats 10 years ago, right? And the research just wasn't quite there. At least now we have it. And then it'll just take time again to get, unfortunately, that's what it takes, is time to get the proper research to see how decisions end up, right? And the outcomes, but that's what we're here for, is hearing those things. I'll come to Ruben in just a sec. I see your hands up, which is great. But just to address Carlos's comment in the chat, is this is a genius idea and would be fantastic, but I think going with the Band-Aid approach is easier overall for the entire organization, administration, players, and everything. Because like the trickling in effect, right, is if you just start this with the younger age groups so that it just happens for a certain age group, and as they progress further along, right, there's just a little bit of challenge to doing it that way. But I agree that would be potentially, right, something that would be something less detrimental to all the existing teams out there. All right, Ruben, you should be able to come off of unmute.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, just a quick question. The club that I coach is part of Coast Soccer League, and I did see that you guys are saying for spring, you're encouraging leagues to move to the calendar year. I was just wondering, for us, as we kind of plan through this fall and into next spring, should we expect to see this guidance turn into a full directive, or is this still going to be an optional for those who are participating in spring leagues for 2026?
It's a good question, Ruben. So it would be optional. It's not going to change. It won't be mandatory until that fall later on in 26. So it's just that suggested, right? The sooner that we can make the transition and get used to it, the better, which is why that's the suggested date for the spring 26. Hope that answered your question, Ruben. And Jessica, hopefully you come. Perfect.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. So actually, the guy that spoke before him, he pretty much said everything I had to say, the Juventus guy. But I do have a question. I was around when the first Matrix changed because I've been with, well, Cal South in 2009. Last time it was July 1st. When the Matrix changed, it was July 1st. Right?
It was, what was it, July?
July 1st, I believe.
Maybe
It was, August 1st through July 31st.
July 31st. So it was July 31st. So are you guys gonna do any grandfathering in for teams that have been together? Like, for example, our boys have been playing together for 10 years since they were 4 and 5. They've been doing club for, I'm gonna say, the last 8 years. So with this Matrix change, we lose 2 senior boys that have been with us since day one. Like, how do you tell a kid that you can't pay for that team anymore because of the Matrix change? I went through it with our girls and it didn't go very well. And that guy, like I said, that guy that spoke, he said exactly what I had to say. It's very traumatizing for those kids. Like, they go down a rough road. They really do. And I experimented with the girls and it was tough. Like, how do I tell these 2 boys, you can't play for us anymore after 10 years? It's tough, right? Like, how do you do that?
Absolutely is extremely tough. And there's no right way to go about this. I would say, again, like collaboration within a club is like just huge for, again, if teams are going to kind of put some players to play up to keep teams together, right? To keep those 2 senior players together, that's a possibility. Potentially also.
But you know, it's not the same. It's like getting a divorce after 10 years. It's
Yeah.
not the same, right? That's exactly what you were doing to those kids. We're divorcing them. Like, we're giving them a divorce. And everybody takes it a whole different path. Like I said, I did it with the girls' team. Same thing happened. You know, they've been together for a long time. And those, you know, it happened to be 2 girls also. It went down the wrong path. Like, I know there's nothing that can be done anymore. When the survey went out, I took the survey and I wrote a big old paragraph on that. But it didn't matter because our voice doesn't matter. At the end, I know everybody, some people probably didn't speak for themselves. I did. But it's done. It's done and over with. Like I said, there's nothing you can do. It's done.
Yeah. I would say one big point I would like to make, Jessica, is that your voice does matter for sure. When we sent out the survey, actually,
I wrote a big old paragraph on that. I mean, I took my survey.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. We need to hear from as many people as possible. I'd say for us, we definitely didn't have the amount of people that we would have liked to fill out the survey, but it was pretty close. It wasn't 50-50, but it was pretty close between the pros and the cons. Like, people were for or people were against it. And so that's just one of the big things is we need more voices, more people to let us know.
I get the Matrix change. Like, it'll, like, my son will be better. He'll be playing against younger kids and he's a big boy. So I'm good for that, right? But what do I do with those other senior boys that I have that have been with us forever? You know, it sucks. And I think like the guy said, Manu, like, changing the Matrix. Why do we keep doing that to these kids? Like, we already suffered through one Matrix change, now through another, and then 10 years you go through another one again. It's just wrong. Like, we need to stick to one and not change it. Whatever it's going to be, I don't care. You know, my son's going to be a freshman, so I got 3 more years and I'm done with you know, the Matrix thing. But going down the line, it has to be set permanent. You can't go back and forth on the Matrix.
Yeah. And this was pretty quick turn. Of course, thank you.
Exactly. You got no time. It was just kind of like, boom, it's done.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's all. I guess it's just, there's not going to be no grandfathered in either, right? It's the Matrix is Matrix.
Yeah. So that is, the cutoffs are hard. But again, thank you for sharing, Jessica. I'm going to go ahead and put you on mute just so we can hear from Rodrigo as well. But again, thank you for sharing and voicing the opinion. We know it's not going to be easy to transition. There's different things, and we can chat as we get through later today, or we could chat offline about potential more options about the senior players and how we can support them a little bit more as we go through. And then just the hopes, like you say, is that continuously, like it was a quick turnaround, but what we're really looking for is something to keep this a little more permanent, right? So if after this transitional period, kind of how things are now is where we've gotten to the flow of things and teams have gotten that chemistry and clubs and everything, right? Hopefully that will continue and then this will stay and this will stick so we don't have to deal with this anymore. But Rodrigo, you have your hand up and I'd like you to be able to share as well. So go ahead and click the unmute button and let's hear from you.
Hi, yes. So I've been listening and I heard a couple people already that they are completely against the change. So from my personal experience, I have a I have a 2005 boy already done. He was a January. He went through that period. Right now, I have a trap player 2010. So this past winter was really really rough on her because more than half of her team was playing high school and she was not playing high school. We had no team to practice for like 3 or 4 months, and unfortunately, I was able to pay someone to train her, but I had to pay someone out of pocket just so she can stay training. Otherwise, she has no team to train and no team to play with for 3 or 4 months during high school season. That's my trap player right now. So that's right now. If this change doesn't happen, what's going to happen to her in senior year? More than half of her team is going to graduate. She stays behind, and now she has to find a new team. It's going to be really rough for her to find a new team when she's a senior and try to fit in into a team that is already built. So there's that's just my opinion on why this was very important to change, because what I'm going through right now, or what I just went through during her trap season year, and what she's going to go through thinking ahead in senior year. That's what I wanted to point out pretty much. I mean, I have a lot more to say because I also have a 2005 boy that played MLS Next. He was January born, and I went through the whole change. It didn't seem to affect him at all. But of course, there's always going to be people um, in pro and against, and that's just my opinion about why it's important for the change to be made, because teams are being broken up apart right now, and it's just not fair for the kids.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Rodrigo, for sharing that. So again, there's reasons for and reasons against it, and I think that's good that we're hearing both points of view. So thank you for sharing that story, Rodrigo. Again, the chat's open in case people want to continue the conversation within chat. And I think Jake put another article in there about the I don't know if it's just the August or September date, or if this is about the birth year versus school year. Maybe I'll ask you to come off a mute in a second again. But for Adrian with the private question about 9v9 teams moving 11v11, maybe Adrian, maybe I'll ask you to come off of mute and you can maybe clarify the question that you have. Adrian Casillas.
Hello, how's it going? Thank you.
Hey, how are you?
I guess my question is, assuming like your team is on the younger side, most of the team is, post September birthdays. If we were to move up with the current matrix, right, we'd be 11v11 next spring. And then the following fall, when the change is mandatory, would that bring us back down to 9v9?
So we'd have to take a look at the exact matrix and go through it, but I don't know if Laura or Adrian have the answer to that. Look at the matrix and pull it up. But if you start to play older for the younger players, there could potentially be, if you put them up to play the 11v11 and then adjust them back down for the fall season to play in the school year, except there is always the option to keep them on the older age group team. So that way they wouldn't have to go bouncing back and forth between the game models. I would say that's probably, again, a a big part of the collaboration between the teams and the clubs and the coaches is for players, especially in that age group, like you say, that it could be a little bit awkward to be changing from 9s to 11s back to 9s, is should they be staying at the 9s already, or if they go up, should they just stay up at the 11v11? So that would be just my advice is, again, talking with the club, talking with the coaches, and seeing where players may fit when we adjust to this new year, and see those specific players, right? Try and do what's best for them so that they don't have to go through all those changes as well. I think Dar just said similar to that as well. Having players play up potentially. So I know we're getting probably into the last about maybe 10 minutes while we're in here. So again, if you have anything to share, feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand. Probably hear from maybe just a couple more people before we start to wrap things up tonight. Again, appreciate you all voicing, hearing feedback from all of you. This is great for us to know, and hopefully we've been able to clarify a few things for you. So again, if you have any questions, comments, please let us know. Maybe throw it to anyone else on the staff that I maybe neglected. Or Anthony or Christy have anything to say that they've heard so far? Not that you have to.
Thanks, Mike. Just on my end on the state tournament, again, all the teams, once this goes into effect for the state tournament, have already participated under the new school year matrix. So there will be an easy transition for the state tournament. And a lot of the concerns that have been brought up, we did bring those up to U.S. Soccer. So there was a lot of discussion within our state, a bunch of state representatives, and all these concerns were brought up at the end of the day, based on the data, the research, and the surveys that U.S. Soccer, they felt this is the best way to go in regards to for the federation, and they implemented it all across all of our organizations. That's why U.S. Club, ASO, and U.S. Youth came out with the statement, because again, it was mandated by U.S. Soccer, and this is how the other organizations felt. In regards to September 1st being the date, they also did research data in regards to what school years were all across nationally, and they felt that the September 1st to August 31st was most of the school years kind of start dates and things like that. So that's why they implemented this time around, going September to August 31st.
Thank you, Anthony. And Christy, I saw you may have come off of mute. I don't know if you've been off of mute or if you just came off, if you had something to share as well.
No, I just wanted to say I too was in the age of when we changed it last time, and it took 2 to 3 years to regroup and get the players where they needed to be. And some of the players had to play up and they weren't happy about it. And it's unfortunate. And this is, I believe I thought I saw a question just pop up. Coast Soccer League was offering to do it for their spring to try to align the teams for the fall in 26, not 25. In 2026, they're offering to use the new matrix for their spring league to try to build their teams for the fall season. So that was an opportunity that was given by Coast Soccer League. It wasn't a decision that was made. It was just an opportunity by Coast Soccer League. That was it.
Yeah. Thank you, Christy. And just to kind of talk about that a little bit more for Barry again, and Jonathan, thank you for reiterating that too. Is it's optional for sure. One of the things to think about that we've thought about also is, you know, if we know something's going to be happening 2 years from now, why should we wait till then to make any of these changes? So having the option, if you would like, to start being able to adjust and get things ready to go for the fall of 26, right? That gives you the option to do that. And if you don't want to kind of phase into it, then by all means, you can just wait until that fall of 26 timeline. But at least for those that maybe want to get the ball rolling a little bit sooner, which I think from feedback from what we've heard is a lot of people do to get this going sooner rather than later, because it's going to happen eventually. So for lack of a better term, pulling off the Band-Aid sooner, right, would at least make the transition a little bit easier. And Jake, and I've heard from you once, maybe ask you questions. Do you want to come off of mute and elaborate more on that one? Do I need to give you the access again? There you go.
Perfect. Thanks, Mike. Just again, for the context on that other article, it just gives a little bit more history on initial changes, reasons for the changes, right? More of like, you know, it was a tail wagging the dog situation, in my opinion. And now we're probably going back to what's probably best practices, generally speaking, right? As you said, probably 80% of the country and 80% of our player pool, 80% of our teams. It's probably the right decision. But then you can kind of forecast what other federations are doing. And if we're playing catch up, I guess, right? The German Federation, the British Federation, right, in 26, well, the German Federation in 25 and 24, they switched their playing formats. The FA is switching their playing formats. So, you know, it's going to go 3v3, 4v4s, 5v5, 7v7, and then 11v11 won't happen until after U13, I think. So my guess is, based on some of the USYS pilot programs as well, that there's probably going to be a shift and a change in the playing formats as well, which was a great thing, in my opinion, but will probably cause some disruption as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Jake, for sharing that. And for the insights, like you say, there have been pilots for changing the game formats or game models, especially at the younger ages, right, or implementing the younger ones. So that's definitely something to know for the future. Thanks. And same thing. Thanks for sure putting out there. Good conversations going through the chat, right? So the option beginning fall 25. There actually has been an option to go through the school year, right? We've actually always had that option. The beginning for the spring 26, right, would be that the spring league with CSL, but they're potentially, again, depending on the age of the players, because if they're playing up, that would be something that you could already prepare for, but playing down, you wouldn't be able to do that. I think that's most of the questions in the chat. No more hands. So maybe we'll give it like another couple minutes to see if there's any other questions, or if anyone else wants to come off of mute and share. Probably have time for maybe one or two more. Otherwise, we'll start to wrap this thing up. See another familiar name in there. And to introduce Jesus Cisneros. Not that you have to say anything as well, but in charge of a lot of our great programs, runs a lot of these, in case you had anything to share.
No, good evening, everyone. It's good to hear the feedback, whether it's good or bad. It's like Mike is saying, it's important for us to hear it. Please keep it up even after this call, letting us know your thoughts as they come up, and we will troubleshoot this together.
Thank you. All right. Any last thoughts, comments, questions? So I just want to thank you all for being here tonight, putting your time in so we can hear feedback from you all. Again, this conversation is important. Jessica, thank you for filling out the survey, right? We value everyone's opinions. We want to hear more from all of you. That way, again, we can voice the opinions and push things forward and try and do what's best for the majority and see what happens. At the end of the day, depending on which direction that things decide to go, right, we can always voice our opinions and share what's working, what's not working, so that we can always try and, you know, improve the process that's going forward. So again, thank you all very much. I would say you can reach out to us. You've got the information through the registration link. Maybe you put a few of our emails in the chat as well, so that you can reach out to us after this and keep the conversation going. Appreciate all of your time. Thank you all, and then we'll see you on the next one.